In today's video, I want to talk about some of the ways in which we know when it might be time to leave a relationship and what I would consider. In my coaching practice, I speak to so many of you that are ready to leave a relationship and it's an unhealthy relationship, whereas you don't feel good 80% of the time and you want to leave the relationship. For those of you that have worked with me, you know that I always say never to leave the scene of the crime until you've done a certain level of healing work. And the reason for this is that you are going to attract that which you are in your new relationship. You can't escape yourself. I want to go over some of the things that I would look at or consider when I am deciding to walk away from a relationship. The number one thing that I would look at is, first of all, if the relationship is unhealthy, there's a lot of conflict and arguments, that's not necessarily a bad thing. And I want you to hear me out about this. When there's no conflict in a relationship, it means that people don't care. You want to be in a partnership where both parties care. Of course, you need to learn how to have healthy communication. You can't have a relationship where the communication is just hurting each other. That's not healthy, but that's something that can be worked on. If you're in a relationship where there's constant struggles and you're not able to communicate or hear each other, that isn't necessarily a reason to leave the relationship, because it's a skill that needs to be learned. And if you are with a very masculine partner and you are a very feminine woman, you really don't hear each other. And what the feminine is trying to convey to the masculine is not what the masculine is hearing, and vice versa. This is an area of improvement in the relationship, especially if there's passion and there is love. You don't necessarily want to be in a relationship where there's no conflict, but there's also no passion, no intimacy, and you're in the relationship out of convenience. That is not a fulfilling partnership. When it comes to toxic relationships, domestic violence in any respect is a big no-no. A man should never, ever, ever put his hands on you and should have enough self-control that even if you are saying things to him that he might not like, he should have enough self-control to walk away. Emotional abuse is also a red flag. Those types of relationships I would really consider moving away from regardless. If there was any of that going on, that's not the right person for you. A man needs to be able to control his temper. That's something he should have learned from his father, and that's his own thing. One thing to look at even here is, am I doing something and am I creating a situation where my partner is reacting in that way? Again, I'm not saying to blame yourself, because I personally believe that there is literally no excuse for a man to put his hands on you, and that if a man does that, he's extremely weak. A man showing any sort of aggression toward a woman in any respect is very, very unhealthy, and that's something that he needs to look at, because as women, we are much smaller than men, and there's no way we can ever intimidate a man. Even if we're yelling, we're screaming, we're not big enough and strong enough to intimidate a man. When a man uses any sort of intimidation to dominate you or get his point across, that's extremely unhealthy, and that's not your fault. But you can look at, is there a way in which I'm communicating that is potentially setting him off? So what you want to look at as a woman, and this is what I would consider before walking away in a relationship, is my tone aggressive when I'm going to my partner? Am I belittling him? Am I making him feel bad? Am I putting him down? Again, there's no excuse for a man to be intimidating and aggressive towards a woman. Again, it doesn't matter what a woman does necessarily. It should not incite that type of reaction, because that's a man's duty to control his temper. I just want to make that clear. However, if we move with the assumption that most men are good, and if the man is not good, then you need to also go back to yourself and ask yourself why you even married a man that's not good, or you're in a relationship with a man that innately doesn't have good intention. Everything always comes back to us. If we have the assumption that this man is a good man, we want to look at our part in how we are communicating with our partner. Before I decide to walk away from a relationship, I clean up my side of the street. You can never control another person, and you can never control that person's reaction and life. You only have control over yourself. And what you really want to pay attention to before you leave a relationship relationship is cleaning up your side of the street, meaning like knowing that you showed up as your best self as much as possible. The most destructive relationships, I believe, are the best relationships in a way for growth and for healing. If you're in a situation where something is not working in any area of your life, you want to look inward because everything externally is a reflection of what's going on internally. And so if your partner is not showing up for you, or you feel abandoned, or he's triggering you, that's not necessarily him doing something. Oftentimes, that's an internal belief system that we picked up from our early childhood, and our partner's actions are bringing up that feeling of being abandoned, not being chosen, not being prioritized, even though his actions might suggest that he's not choosing you or he's not prioritizing you. If it's triggering you, it's creating a negative emotional reaction, that is something that lives within you. If someone's actions are not making you feel good, that's okay and that's fair and that's fine. The way in which you communicate that should not come from a place of reactivity and unworthiness. If it's coming from a place of reactivity and unworthiness, and you're not feeling good about it, like you really feel abandoned or really hurt by it, that is not the person's actions. That action is just triggering a feeling that you already had within. Because again, if you didn't have that belief system of not being chosen, if you didn't feel like you were abandoned as a child or by your dad or anyone external to you, whatever a man's actions is just a reflection of a man's actions. It has nothing to do with you. If it's triggering you, then that's an opportunity for you to look within to see, this is interesting. In this relationship, whatever my partner is doing, it's triggering this feeling in me of not feeling good enough, not feeling worthy. And that is something that you want to explore before you leave the relationship. And the reason I say that is you take yourself with you. Even if you end this relationship that you're in now, and this is what I say to every woman, you're going to attract another relationship that is going to bring up those same feelings, because the universe is designed to bring us back into wholeness and homeostasis within. And that is the whole point of existing on this planet. It's not for material things or anything like that. It's really to bring us back into wholeness. And relationships are the greatest mirror for that. If you leave this relationship and you end up in another relationship, you're going to have very similar issues in the relationship, in that they're going to do certain things. It's going to activate those certain feelings. Why? Because you've not healed those things within you. That's not your partner's issue. That's your issue. When you heal these aspects in the relationship, so you're feeling like your partner's not prioritizing you, etc., it's triggering you. Let's say you've already cleaned up your side of the street, in that you've done a certain level of work on yourself before entering the relationship. You have clear boundaries. You are able to communicate your needs. You don't get upset. You don't get reactive. You're not a defensive person. You're agreeable. You compromise. You don't have trust issues, but you're with a partner that when you communicate with your partner, all of his stuff comes up. Because let's say your partner has not looked at himself or his past. So naturally, if you go to your partner about an issue, let's say he becomes defensive, and let's assume for like purposes of this video that you were actually communicating to him in a loving way. As women, we're not perfect. Sometimes we're going to be needy. Sometimes we're going to be emotional. That is normal. And again, it's a man's duty and responsibility to learn how it is to be with a woman. If a man doesn't want an emotional woman, then he should be with a woman that is more in her masculine energy. Women that are more in their feminine, you're going to have moments where you're emotional, a little bit more needy. That's normal. I'm talking about reactivity. As long as you're going to your partner in a loving way, and let's say anytime you bring something to him, he's becoming reactive, and his reactiveness is causing you to get triggered. Sometimes this happens in dynamics before they mature. If that is happening, it's very easy again to point the finger and to say, well, I'm coming to you, I compromise, I'm loving, I talk to you in a loving manner. You're the one that's getting defensive. You're the one not compromising. I'm showing up here. I've made sacrifices. I'm showing up for you in the way you want. But when I come to you about a need or a request, you immediately get upset. In this situation, it is also very easy to say, well, I have cleaned up my side of the street, and you likely have. If you're in a relationship where you're meeting your partner's needs, meaning your partner hasn't come to you in a non-confrontational way and said to you, I need this and this from you, that generally means you're meeting your partner's needs. If you've cleaned up your side of the street, meaning you are a woman that feels good to be around, you are light, you are happy, you don't have trust issues, you have faith in men in general, and you're not triggered by a man's actions, usually it's like the bigger things that you need from him. And it could be that you're bringing to the table, you're not receiving back, and you're communicating those things to him. And let's say he becomes reactive. In those situations, it could be very tempting to also say, I don't want to be in this relationship because I'm not getting back what I'm receiving. And I completely understand this thought. However, the way that I would also look at this situation is, well, if I'm going to my partner about something and they're getting triggered, let's say you're at a level 2 of emotion. This is the masculine sometimes when he's immature. They don't like when the feminine is upset. They don't understand that usually the feminine is upset because the feminine is needing to spend time with the masculine. All the feminine wants is quality time with her partner. That's really all she wants. And she wants her feelings to be heard. When the masculine is sort of immature, he doesn't understand this and he takes everything as an attack because he's not healed from his past. It's very easy in this situation to think, well, I'm not going to tolerate this. I'm just going to be with a man that just gets it and wants to spend time with me, doesn't get upset, is able to like hold space for me. Here's the caveat. If you're getting upset when he's getting upset, there's more work to be done. And I know this really sucks to hear. If you're a growth minded individual like I am, my greatest value in life is growth. I am obsessed with growing and learning about myself and developing higher levels of emotional intelligence. I think that we all have work to do at whatever stage we're in. And when you're being triggered, it is the best gift that you can get from the outside world, aside from working with a coach, to indicate to you where there's still areas and room for you to grow. The entitled, arrogant, egoic person doesn't see anything as their fault and is also going to live a small life. If you want a big life, and the only way to have a really big life is to do your inner work, because the more you unblock and the more you look at yourself, the bigger and more expanded your life gets, and the better quality partners you will attract. If not this partner, there'll be another partner you will attract, and it'll be better than this partner, because everyone is a match and a mirror to your internal state. And so in a situation where you don't really get triggered, and if your partner comes to you and he's upset and you can apologize, there's no ego there, right? You can hold space for your partner. Your partner doesn't really complain to you about anything, but you're getting triggered when he's getting triggered. There's work there. And if you leave a situation without cleaning up your side of the street, what's going to happen is you're going to end up in another situation. And even if the circumstances are not exactly the same, it will be a situation that brings out those deeper layers of healing because it's not resolved. You've not passed these tests. And how you know in this situation particularly that it's time to leave is if you clean up your side of the street, meaning you manage your emotions, you look at what your triggers are, you gain more awareness about yourself, and you really manage your reactivity. And let's say your partner hasn't cleaned up his side of the street, at some point the situation is not going to bother you anymore. This is how you know it's time to leave in anything, even in a career. When there's a charge there still, when there's an emotional charge in the situation, it means that there's still something in the situation that needs to be healed and taken care of. When the charge is no longer there, meaning I've learned everything I need to learn from this relationship, unfortunately, my partner is not growing with me, so we're not evolving in the relationship. I'm not getting upset anymore. I've cleaned up my side of the street. I'm not reactive. My needs are still not getting met. This person is not evolving to where I'm at on my journey. You'll know that it's time to leave, and it'll be a calm decision. The attraction for that person will have gone down. And I don't just mean attraction will have gone down in that as the feminine, when you're in a relationship with a man and you're not getting your needs met, the attraction already does go down, but you're still physically attracted to the person and there's still a pull to that person. When it's time to leave, like walk away from the relationship, you're not going to feel attraction even physically to the person anymore because you've outgrown the situation and the person. And even though feelings of attachment will be there and the fear of being alone and all those feelings that we all experience when we're moving away from something and moving towards something else, those feelings will be there. You won't have a pull to the person anymore. That's how you know that it's time to leave. If you don't like how something is playing out in your relationship, rather than looking at your partner, take personal responsibility for your role in the situation. If you are attracting anyone into your life and there's an attraction there, meaning that you're in the situation, you're a participant of the situation. A victim mindset is one where we're always looking at the external. We're never looking at the internal. And you can do that. And momentarily that feels good because it's ego and you don't have to look at yourself, because looking at yourself and taking personal responsibility is very, very difficult. When you take personal responsibility and you actually look at yourself, you actually have a chance at living a very happy life, because once you grow from this situation, you move on to another level. And yes, there will be challenges at the new level. It's just like Nintendo, where you pass one level, then you go to another level, there's challenges there, and then there's another level. You're still moving up in life. If you don't look at yourself and you blame everything on the external environment and your partner, what's going to happen is, and let's say they actually are a good person and they're a good partner, you're going to lose that person. You don't want to look at yourself. And then you're not going to be able to attract something new, because one of the biggest feelings that most people have after ending a relationship without having looked at themselves is regret. You don't want to have any sort of regret when you leave a relationship. You always want to have the feeling of, did I do everything in my power to be my best self in the situation? Or did I leave prematurely? Could I have done something different? Because when you experience regret, and I've worked with many women that have this experience of regret, they suppress these emotions and they're never able to attract a higher quality person until they've done their inner work, because they're holding on to the regret of that relationship. And so if you've not done your part in the relationship, you've not looked at yourself, you've not grown, you're not going to attract a person like that again. And you actually might attract a person that is beneath where you are, but that feels safe to you, because this person kind of just goes along with whatever you say, and there's not going to be any sort of attraction there because there's also no growth there. I hope this helped. If you need to speak with me about your specific situation, please book a call with me. The Inner Work course is going to help you so much identify a lot of your blocks. And in the Inner Work course, I talk about masculine, feminine energy dynamics. That's really going to help you in terms of like your healing journey. The books are also going to teach you about masculine, feminine energy and like how to date. If you're interested in that, make sure you check out those resources, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.